Welcome everyone back to Big Gold Belt. This is Zero Gravity here with my boy Najir, and today we're going to cover a new horror film called Candisha. This is a French horror film that covers Moroccan folklore. It starts with three young women trapped between a rock, a hard place, and an extremely difficult paranormal entity.
Yeah, you can check this out. It's going to be on Shudder. It's a Shudder original film. Premiering July 22nd. And folks, I know you have missed us in reviewing horror films together. I reviewed one, which I felt like was kind of like, like leaving my partner hanging. But we had some things going on, but we're back. Nothing between us but life, But this is the film that I think we both agree that we had to get back together in order to review it, because this one definitely was a, oh shit. But Sarah, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk about this movie. Let's get it.
Yeah, I love what I see in your background back there. I see that. That is dope. Hey,
I got myself a letterboard and now I don't know how to act.
Yeah. So I'll say for me, for starters, I'm a sucker for folklore, and I know a lot of American ones. I know some Mexican ones. So anytime that I'm able to not only learn about other ones from other nationalities, but to actually visually see it is a whole other impact. And this film was brutal.
It was brutal. Brutal to say the least. And
yeah, I was just gonna say to say the least. I was just about to say that. Yeah, this was brutal. Well, let's just start with the simple stuff. Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it?
I did like it. I like this a lot. I wouldn't call it a favorite of this year, but it's up there.
Yeah.
We've watched our share of mediocre horror movies this year. You and I both know that. But this one I was really impressed with. I always love watching foreign horror. You get a really good sense of world building without actually having to leave Earth. I've never been to France, so it was cool to see this myself. But this film had me thinking of Candyman. It felt like Candyman's little sister came in with that strength. Folklore is so interesting because you really get to see kind of two different sides. You get like the fear that's supposed to be provoked to the public. Usually these folklores are trying to warn young children of something. That's how they come about in culture. Yeah. So you get that empathetic side of what a certain cultures are trying to warn you from. And then you also get with folklore that little bit of empathy, that little bit of I feel for this character, I feel for the situation. That's why folklore is so cool, because you can't really have a good guy, bad guy situation. It's just a situation. And the reason why these things exist are to warn you for this reason. So you find your characters, like I said before, in the middle of a rock and a hard place. And it's not always an easy out, as we can see from this movie.
Yeah, I know there's constraints about how folklores work and whatnot. I'm just going to be very clear that the fact that you already said Candyman once, that name is not allowed to be said at all at the continuity of this review, because that is one of my childhood trauma moments, and I still can't wait for the next one to come out. But I'm just saying that, like, you absolutely read my mind with that one. Exactly what I was thinking about. And I also think because in folklore, like you said, most of these presents are summoned. And better yet, not just summoned, but unleashed to the point where it's just like they can do their own will. But the fact that Candisha was summoned and you can summon her was different, that I don't see too often. And I like that, because I think that's what made the flow of events really unique, because there was, even when they were trying to do I don't know what the ceremony or the
seance.
The seance. There we go. There we go. And it was, I was thinking to myself, like, wait, she's not here. And then it was like, oh, because, by the way, I've seen this film 4 times. I watched it a lot. But so that's why I'm kind of jumping towards the end. But I remember the first time watching, I was just like, this is not going to work because she's not here. And she seems to be acting in a form of malice. Well, it felt like revenge, or it almost felt noble at one point. And then it was like malice. And then it was just like, oh, pure brutal mentality. Just anybody in the way in any way. And I was just like, okay. Oh, so you're going to summon her. That's not going to work because that's not how she operates. Oh, that is how she works. So
it's important to know those things.
Yeah.
I mean, not me personally, but the character that's getting himself in right now. It would have probably been a better idea to do a little bit of research on this folklore before you dive right ahead and go ahead and try to summon it to try to help you. But, you know, as the story goes along, you can see that this character was in a place of desperation and revenge. And Nigeria, you and I have talked about the good for her kind of subgenre of usually a woman who is wronged. And then the rest of the course of the movie plays out and them getting their revenge moment. So that's what I thought that this movie was going to be in the beginning. One of our protagonists gets into a sticky situation and they're looking to some otherworldly being, some spiritual being for help. And so that's the first thing that came to my mind was, oh, we're going to get it good for her. We're going to get, brutal forms of justice that will most likely be bloody, but it really ends up being kind of a twister in how, you summon a genie and you get what you want, but then it doesn't always work out. It almost never works out in your favor here, which I was pleasantly surprised with.
Yeah. I also think, the one thing, a lot of times in reviewing films, the one thing, especially in horror, that I always talk about, and it sounds like a broken record, is the human element factor. And I feel like a lot of the responses to this terror was very natural because they were kids, again, did not really know what they got themselves into, and happened to really, like metabolize these things and these events on the fly, where like one victim after another victim, and it's like, wait, did we do this? Wait, like, is this like who is the victims here? Like, it's just like it was almost to a point where it's like, yeah, that dude should have got it. We all can agree. There's just like, oh wait, hold on. So your family members can get it, and anyone can get it. Anyone can get it.
Is the moral of this story here? Anyone can get it.
And I appreciated that because I think I would have really disliked the psychology of Candisha if she was kind of working in the way of playing God, because you summoned her because of a prayer, right? to rid the world of this evil for you as a sort of a blessing for the better good of what you prayed for. And it's just like, oh, this ain't God. And I think even some of the close-up visuals, which was fantastic. I love some of the shots that they use, the really close-up shots, that you kind of look back and was like, oh no, this ain't your God here.
This is not what you thought it was. Thought you were coming through with a blessing, but absolutely not. And that's the main. I mean, besides the whole folklore aspect, that's the main reason why I was getting heavy Candyman vibes. Because Candyman comes out, well, maybe not in the original, but comes out for a purpose. This is the folklore. This is the tale behind it. And then ultimately, it ends up doing way more harm than good. And you unleash this thing that you think could potentially be in your favor, and you immediately have to put your foot in your mouth. Immediately. You can't rely on these things. But back to the visuals here. The visuals here. First of all, I thought that this film had, like I said earlier, had great world building. I've never been to France, but I feel like I got a pretty decent feel of like the tone of underground, like grunge French culture. I loved meeting the characters in the very opening scene. They felt real. You and I both hate like a character that you can't relate to, and it's like, why are you opening that door? Why are you going in there? But everything felt very. Oh my God, I didn't feel that here. Luckily,
Yeah.
At all, actually. But
Yeah.
the characters felt real. They felt like they could have been me and my friends hanging out at the diner. They felt innocent, but not completely innocent, like most teenage and young 20 people are. And it felt real. It felt real enough to understand this situation. And I did think that was very cool. I think we had some really good actors here. I think that they really played into their part, all of their parts pretty well, especially because with the three, with our big three, the protagonists, from beginning to end, we're going through some really traumatic stuff, and you really see it on their faces and how they value family and can push aside the feeling of revenge when need be. And the gore was excellent in my opinion. I think I wouldn't quite call this like teen horror. I would call it like maybe in the young adult section, something like that. But I think it's pretty relatable to young people who, you know, appreciate nightlife and go out and could potentially find themselves in harmful situations where you don't really know what to do. Don't call on a spirit. Just don't do that. But you know, besides that sense, it seems pretty relatable. You know, kids hanging out, spray painting, doing little malicious things, drinking, etc. But the gore here is so tasteful. It really is. And there's one instance where I should give a trigger warning for something.
I know where you're going at. Yeah.
Something happens with an animal, which is kind of pushing the boundary a little bit, but I do think it was appropriate. I don't think it was uncalled for at all, but the gore was extremely tasteful. I think it was quick, to the point, shocking, not overly dramatic. It's just, this is what happened, and it doesn't hide anything behind corners. What the spirit is going, well, actually maybe in one instance it did, one kill it did, but besides that one specific kill, you get to see exactly what this entity is doing to its victims, which is really cool, because a lot of the times with the supernatural stuff, it's hard to portray on film, but they show you. They really do show you. And I also think that our spirit was very scary. And progressively scarier throughout the film. And I think that was that confusion in the beginning when our main protagonist is summoning the being, and she seems kind of neutral. She's dressed very not uniform, very modest. She's dressed modestly. She's not enticing. You know, if you see this chick at the end of the hallway, your first instinct might not be to run, because I don't know where this being stands. But then as the story goes on and we learn more about the versatility of this being and how it's really not what you thought it was, then that starts to show in the being's actions and also how the being is portrayed. Because first you're thinking, you get that empathetic side of folklore where this was once a woman who was wronged, and now she gets her revenge by doing XYZ. And then it kind of gets a little more malicious. She gets a little scarier, you know, in its subtle costume changes. And I remember thinking at one point while I was screening this, that this is not what this spirit looked like in the beginning of the film.
You're bringing up an amazing point too. I'll let you finish, but you're bringing up an amazing point.
Oh no, go ahead. I'm here.
Okay. So there's a lot I just want to piggyback on really quickly. The first thing is when you talk about the trigger warning and that scene, very graphic. It did set the tone for the gore and the horror going forward, but it also spoke to the psychology of these characters who were just completely ignorant because they are kids. And while they think that they knew what they were doing upon summoning this being, they also thought that they actually knew how to fix this immediately, which we saw that they made not only just a sacrifice, but a significant sacrifice, considering that was a pivotal person, not a pivotal person, but a figure in their family, to the point that you had to go lie to your little brother about it. So it did set the tone going forward. It was definitely like a moment for me. First time I saw it, I was like, oh no. Second time and the other times after that, definitely not. But again, it was one of those ones where it's like, okay, I guess it had to happen because it spoke in a lot of directions as to what's happening here. Right. To the culture, definitely agree with you. Love the look into this culture, the intrigue of what this nightlife feel of this kind of a street painter and an artist crew. I definitely appreciated that, even into the music as well. The performances by them, although I'm not familiar with any of their work, I thought that everybody did a really good job in their position, because I felt like that spoke to really the authenticity of what this culture is, and then being able to add the horror into it. Maybe some coaching to really get them to like phantom them the reactions that was needed. And I thought it was fine across the board. I didn't look at anybody. I was like, that's not how I would act. And like you said, everything felt really, really authentic on that note. But to the being, Candisha, as the costumes and everything progressed, I thought it also spoke to the strength of, and again, because I'm not familiar with this, is that it feels like this is how this being works. It gains strength and the appearance change, and then we ultimately see portions of her mutating to the point that it starts to become familiar with other folklore. She's just like, oh, the whole lower body, and as we've seen in other things, once you get to the ultimate form is when you've made your peace, or you actually I guess the word could be almost adapted into society now, because you're a being, you get stronger, and then ultimately you become a figure. And whatever that may be, it's safe to say, based on the ending of this film, based on the world that they built around this film, and based on what we're talking about, the being strengthening, it leaves a lot of good room to build beyond this. And I think that will have some intrigue. I think the ending, the stinger or whatnot, is not one that I think we can just be satisfied with and say, you know what, no more. I think if going down the right avenues, then I think there will be an additional interest in saying like, oh, a couple of people still alive because no one was safe. The being looks to be doing the return of the Mac here, so so like bring it on. I think too. I don't know the budget of this film, but if this does well and gets enough eyes and whatnot and enough interest, then it could be bigger and better. And even if it doesn't get bigger, the fact that they have enough confidence to continue the story still indicates that it could be better. And that's that. I do want to say stuff, because I know I'm saying a lot of positive things, and there's not a lot of negativity I want to add to this. Like, again, the film is good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I watched it 4 times. I'm not overly in love with it, and I don't know what it is that is lacking. I don't know, because there's nothing with them speaking in the native language of French and happen to read the subtitles, but obviously, sometimes, and that matter of fact, let me throw this out there too. Reading the subtitles does not take away from you enjoying the atmosphere. That's a huge thing. I just watched a movie where the subtitles threw me out because things was happening too fast, and I read pretty good, but like things were happening so fast, I'm like, oh, I missed it. And, and sometimes important dialogue really translate into what's happening in the scene. And then like small things, mannerisms, and especially in horror films, like eye contact is really important. Even a scene where we see the being and a character eye to eye, and we get a good look in the eye, and you're thinking like, we know what the character looks like from previous scenes, but why zoom in on the eyes here? Because as you said, we're seeing the mutation going on here. As she gets stronger, appearances start to change. So you need to start noticing these things so that like, this is what state she's in. This is how much momentum and strength that she's gotten. So you brought up a lot of amazing points. I just want to add my that's off your greatness.
Not my greatness, but I feel you with it wasn't the best film I've ever seen, but it's hard to put a pin on what this movie needed. And after thinking about it for a little bit, I kind of boiled it down to two things. And one of which I'm still on the fence with. But what I am sure of here is this film is not reinventing the wheel. You know, we get, I don't want to say we get a lot of folklore horror, but we have a handful of it. We generally know the sequence of events that happens when you mess with folklore. You just don't do it. But you know what I'm saying? It's not reinventing the wheel, which is exactly why as soon as I maybe like 2/3 in, I'm feeling heavy Candyman. I'm feeling, oh sorry, I said it again. I'm feeling heavy.
We're up to 5. We're up to 5.
Okay, I'm done. I'm feeling Bloody Mary. I'm feeling La Llorona. I'm feeling,
that's what I was gonna say earlier too.
I'm feeling all those things. It's not reinventing the wheel here, but it was really well done. And when I say it's not reinventing the wheel, I had that thought in my head while I was watching this film, but I was pleasantly surprised by the ending. Consequences to actions in horror makes me feel good, you know, because whether it's right or wrong, let's be real, this is supposed to scare us. This is supposed to have us going to sleep thinking, ooh, what if, you know, and I don't want to say I like to see people getting off, but when they don't get off, I think it becomes a little bit more real. If I were to go to my altar and try to summon something to help me without really understanding what I'm putting myself into, let's be real, it might not end well for me. And that's not, you know, to say for all of the characters, but there were some consequences that caught up, and that made me feel like, oh, okay, it's all right. We're still on the same theme of not to be messed with. And the second thought that I had, which I'm still struggling with, and I think I might have to give this one another watch in a day or two, but when, as I said earlier, when I had that thought of this is going to be a good for her type, it started with the traumatic event, which is also slightly deserving of a trigger warning. And so immediately in my head, I'm thinking of rape revenge. I'm thinking of assault and what comes after assault, and how this situation completely got out of hand. Like you said earlier, like the first time it's like, all right, my man had it coming for him. Let's see where this goes. And then it continued on, and people are suffering who don't need to suffer necessarily. Kind of put this idea in my head as a criticism for women coming forward. And I don't want to sit here and bash this film as like something that it's not, because I also get the strength of don't mess with these supernatural elements because you don't understand what you're dealing with.
Over and over did we get to this point.
Over and over. But that was something that kind of stuck in my head, where this woman is in a very bad place. She just went through something very traumatic. You know, she's young. She probably has a lot of angst and acts impulsively, wrongfully so, but acts impulsively on the basis of trying to find healing, trying to get justice for something. And that justice is what sent this entire situation into a spiral. Kind of stuck into the back of my head, but I don't think that I'm 100 on that thought. But those are really the only two gripes that I had with this film. The biggest one is that it's not really reinventing the wheel here, but that doesn't mean go and see it, because I think that you should, because the kills were super fun. You know, just decoding this whole film was super fun. I'm gonna go back. The kills were super fun. You know, they're not shy on gore. So I really urge everyone who's watching right now to check this one out and form your own opinion. Just be wary of the trigger warnings that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't care if this is a spoiler or not, but like no one's dad is even safe either, because I cannot believe My man Pops got shredded.
Literally.
I was like, no. I was like, no.
And just when you think that he's good too. Oh, yeah. Great. Exactly. They got Pops. Oh, shit.
Yeah. But
that was one of the best kills in my
Yes,
opinion.
It was. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was. Last note for me is that the three actresses who played Candisha all did a fantastic job, because the continuity amongst the three of them, and not like they had to go out there and do something Oscar worthy, but you still have to have a certain presence in doing so. And that, you know, as we talked about the progressions of this being three different actresses played it, and you wouldn't know unless you're like, you know, I mean, you should know because you're paying attention, but like you wouldn't know that there were different people outside of makeup or effects or anything. Yep. Because that's how it was across the board. So, but yeah, this is a good film. Totally check it out, folks. It's going to be on Shudder, premiering July 22nd. Jump in our comments. Let us know your thoughts about this. Do not get in the comments talking about Candyman, anything. I am black. I don't mess with that. So don't bring it in there. Now we'll be reviewing that when it comes out too. Don't worry. With my eyes closed. That's gonna probably be my funniest review ever. Because it's gonna be a whole bunch of like, well, I think I heard this type of stuff, but I'm not sure. But you know, again, anybody who's a fan of looking for a good horror film, you'll be really comfortable with this one, because it didn't reinvent the wheel, she said. But it also does do some really cool, interesting things, good effects, and it's just solid across the board. It's a super solid film. So check it out, folks. Let us know in the comments your thought about it, and we'll be back consistently with more reviews. Peace out, folks, and thanks for watching. Big old bell.